Hi, everybody. Welcome to the pit. Today we have a very special guest. We have the International President of AFSA, Steve Haro. Could you please tell us about yourself?
Sure. So obviously, as our national president, big fan of the association, what we do for our service members and their families, past, present, and future. Did 23 years in the United States Air Force, where I got to serve as a air traffic controller. Did a couple, did a stint as a technical instructor. Served just a little bit as a first sergeant, but overall, I fell in love with AFSA when I was serving, and that's why I continue to serve because it pays me in purpose, right? So that's something that I always love, connecting with airmen, getting to know their goals, getting to know their families, right? And kind of helping them at their lows, but celebrating them at their highs. But it's a hard switch to turn off. And so being able to serve as the 29th International President of the Air Force Sergeant Association, it's been a blast. It's been an honor, and it's been a great time because I get to know people like family.
It's amazing. I'm so happy to know you too. Was the transition seamless? Like, did you come straight off of active duty and then go straight into being the international president?
Yeah, so there was only a small gap, right? And this is why I love AFSA so much, because I got lucky enough to be poured into, right? So I was serving as the Division II president, which I put it out there for all the other divisions, right? I love all my divisions equally. But Division II is the largest division in AFSA, and it has been for quite some time, right? It's a beast to lead because we have a mix of active duty chapters and our geographically separated chapters, which are also called retiree chapters, right? But being able to be Division II president, I had a fantastic team on my executive council, very supportive. We're all like-minded. And at the end of the day, we're all friends, right? Or became friends and family. But I had a lot of people know Chief Master Sergeant retired Wendy T, right? She called me one day, was like,
Mhm.
"Hey, Steve, I need to talk to you." It's like, yeah, what's going on. I always love talking to Wendy. Usually it's a random FaceTime call with Wendy, but she got me on the phone and was like, "Hey, I think you should run for international president. Here's why." And Wendy's a very convincing person, right? And so she put the bug in my ear, and then I called my senior advisor, past international president Mike Carton, who's been a mentor of mine in AFSA for quite some time, and asked the question. I was like, "Hey, man, do you think I'm ready?" And he was like, "Oh, I know you're ready." He was like, "But the first person you have to ask," and I'm like, he's gonna hit me with something deep. He's gonna say, "You need to reflect within yourself and ask yourself if you're ready." That wasn't the case. He's like, "You need to get off the phone with me and go ask your wife." And so I did just that, right? And luckily, I have a very supportive wife who is going to serve me the honor. She's going to be in attendance in Orlando this year to kind of see me in action with AFSA. And her answer was simple. She's like, "You love AFSA." Absolutely. Right. And she's been very supportive of it. So yeah, being involved with AFSA, I think I was retired for about 6 months before I transitioned
Okay.
on stage and had the courage to, stand under the lights, it's not easy, right? You saw that last year. You've seen it multiple times, actually, right? To be in the caucus and
I could
just,
not imagine.
it's easier than you think, right? Because one of the things that I always pay attention to when I go to AFSA meetings or AFSA briefs, right? When it's not me speaking, it's the passion, right? People fall in love with what we get to do and the network we build within the association. So it was an easy transition, right? And it serves me more than I serve AFSA, right? And I truly mean that, right? Some people would be like, "Oh, IP, that's cheesy." Right. But it's true because it gave me the purpose and it filled the void that I missed the most of being in the Air Force. And that was taking care of my team.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to jump right into these questions, and these questions are going to come from the leadership pillar. So AFSA represents more than 75,000 members worldwide. As international president, how do you approach leading an organization with such a diverse membership base?
It's really meeting people where they're at, right? And you hear that quite a bit, right? It's in some TED Talks out there. It's in a lot of action of our leaders in the association and in the service. But it's truly meeting people where they're at, right? I can talk to chapter presidents who have an amazing chapter. We can look at chapter 652, right? Dan Kazimura and what he's done at Keesler is absolutely amazing, right? And something I got to share with him at the Division 4 convention this past year, it wasn't thanking him for what he was doing for AFSA. It was thanking him for what he's doing for those airmen's mental health, right? The first time away from home, tech school students, being in a community that they're just not really knowing about, right? They're getting their introduction in, and he's getting them out of the dorms, getting them involved, getting them to meet like-minded airmen, right? And being able to get them involved in the association and then send them forward to their bases. And he's providing a community for them, right? Of AFSA, right? If they want to get involved in the chapter, right? But I can talk to Dan, have fantastic conversations about everything he's doing with 652, right? I can jump in. I just met with John Cribb not too long ago. He's a new chapter president at 554 at Eglin Air Force Base. Right, just PCSed in. He's a former chapter president at Dover, and
I
he's
I was about
taking
to say that name sounds really familiar.
yeah, and he
It's
was at
2 of
Dover.
them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So he's at Eglin. His wife is at Herbert Field, but getting to talk to him, and he's just taking over a chapter that kind of fell on hard times, right? So being able to meet them where they're at, get to know them as who they are as a person, right? Because that's one of the things I love about AFSA. I want to know I don't want to know chapter president John Cribb, right? I'm going to work with President John Cribb. I want to get to know John, right? It's always the person before the position, right? I want to meet the person first and then help them walk into the position and fulfill those responsibilities. But yeah, from the leadership side, I think that's one of the biggest things is meeting someone where they're at, seeing what they're doing, and also kind of picking up their chins because sometimes they're like, "Yeah, I only had like 3 people at my meeting, more than zero, right? Let's get 4 next month, right? We got to keep it positive." But yeah, that's why I love about the association because a lot of people think, right, because that name throws it off, that you have to be an NCO, you have to be a senior NCO. No, we have A1Cs leading chapter, right? Senior airmen leading chapters. I love it when I see chief master sergeants leading chapters, right? Because I want to see the whole gamut. And then those retiree chapters, man, like I don't know how they do it because it can be difficult, right? Because it's a very diverse community and it's trying to get people together, right? And there's not many people that want to get together for a chapter meeting at a location. So a lot of them are going virtual. So it is something that at the leadership side of it, just getting to know the person before the position and also kind of seeing where they need help. Because with AFSA, it's not just about AFSA to me. Like, I want to review your records. I want to go talk through the hard times. I want you to vent when it's not your year for promotion and help you make it your year next year, right? Or if you're going something with the family, like we all have walked different journeys. I want to meet people where they're at and help them through the journey that they're facing.
I think that, you really have a talent for connecting with people. Has it always been that way? Because
So
it's
I'm a
genuine. It feels really genuine.
It is, right? It's hard to fake. That was something that would always throw me off when I was serving, right? Because I'm a military brat, right? I was lucky enough to I have my father who's retired Army, my mom's an Army veteran, right? So we moved around a lot, right? I didn't land. It wasn't until I landed at Moody in my career that I stayed somewhere for more than 4 years out of my life, right? I was able to put down roots here. I did half my career here at Moody. So the people that hate on Moody, I love Moody Air Force Base, right? I'm a flying tiger for
Yeah.
life, but it's moving around so much. You have to be able to connect with people, right? You got, being a third grader, first grader, right? Going to a brand new school, but that's a military community, right? Because everybody was the new kid at one point, right? And so that's what I love about the military side, because you could be brand new. It's like, yeah, hey, I'm Steve, you this, or you're Jason. All right, man, let's link up, right? And it's that easy connection of the military kids. But the transition that was the hardest for me, I think, was going from a military school to a civilian school after my dad retired, right? Because they don't know what you're experiencing, right? So always being able to connect with people. I went to high school in Dixon, California, Dixon High School. Shout out to Dixon Rams near chapter 1320, Travis Air Force Base, right? And I made friends
Okay.
there. It was a small school and I made friends there that treated me like they know me since kindergarten, right? They just brought me into the fold and I loved it. But it's something that being a military brat, I think it's a special gift that we all carry with us, right? Being able to hop in a room, talk to anybody, right? And connect with them. But yeah, I love, me, Vandy. You've known me for a couple years now. Man, if you give me the floor, I'm gonna say something, I'm gonna talk, right? So I mean throwing you off, like, is he actually done? Is he got another point to make? But with the connection piece, I just love being able to take care of people, right? So sometimes it's a conversation, sometimes it's showing up for them, and just and being able to like people don't do this enough. People don't positively praise someone for what they do or what they got going on or their traits, right? So I just got back. So my job right now, I'm doing HR work for Dollar General, right? So I just got back from
Okay.
my first HR convention and what I loved about the moment, and the theme was moments that matter, right? And they backed it up. Being a brand new person, right? Kind of at the very lower level of an entry level job with Dollar General on my side of HR, being able to go talk to people, right? Just work the room, right? Talk to people, get to know them. And it really wasn't about trying to move up. It was just about connection, right? Because you always learn from somebody new. But yeah, I was very impressed with the culture that Dollar General has on the HR side. It's extremely impressive.
That's awesome. Okay. I'm going to move on to our next question. All right. So, what leadership principles have guided you throughout your military and AFSA journey?
That's a great question. So
Yeah.
I was on a podcast. When was that? Dallas. So I told the story of my journey as a first sergeant, right? Because hitting the high of being a diamond and then hitting the low of I had my diamond removed, right? I went through a really, really public and bad divorce, and it was like losing a stripe, right? That's what it felt like. But the principle that always stuck out, especially in that moment, right? Because it's a dark time, right? When someone's going through something so personal like that, it's progression over perfection, right? I stand by that rule, right? Sometimes I could be very hard on myself, but then I have to snap to it and go, listen, can you be better tomorrow, right? So there's a lot of times, especially on the AFSA side of it, right, and in the military side of it, you're kind of indoctrinated to look at what's next. What can I do here? How can I be better? How can this be perfect? Oh, I screwed this up, right? And sometimes the negative stuff, the negative trends are focused on. It's pointed out to you, right? But no one's building you up. No one's kind of like, Andy, man, you killed that, right? And there's so many times like I get lucky enough where I see a project from you or from somebody else on one of the committees. It's like, man, you made quick work of that and it looks fantastic, right? But I'm not a big fan of the negative nitpicking, right? There's a difference between the negative and hard truth, right? I'm down for hard truth, right? Not disrespectful, not nothing. Stuff I need to hear, build me back up, revector me, and let me just go get it, right? There's a lot of people like that. So progress over perfection is something that I would tell my team when they get hard on themselves, especially, promotion time. There's so many times people, I give them a day, right? I was eligible for chief one time in my entire career, right? And it was when it was decision time for retirement. And, to be honest, man, I'm glad I didn't make it, right? Because I would have taken that stripe and I would have had to leave my family, right? No way. I mean, I talk about smooch to you, and to the AFSA family, my 4-year-old beautiful little girl and my wife, Laura, man, who's just an absolutely inspiring, amazing person, right? But I couldn't imagine leaving them for 3 years. Just couldn't do it, right? So that's where it's always looking back and going like, I'm too caught up in perfection. I'm not seeing the steps of progress that I'm making or chapters making or individuals making, right? And there's a lot of times I have conversations with people and I always tell them like, you've come such a far way. Like, what? I don't feel that way. No, you have, right? I have to point it out to because a lot of people get so caught up in perfection, they're not seeing their daily wins all the time, right? And we got to celebrate those.
The growth.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep. So it's easier. I say the growth because you might not know you're growing. Some people
Mhm.
do, but like if I'm looking at you, and especially if I haven't seen you in a month or two, like I could see if you grew. Like if we're talking about like the visual side, so they might not notice the growth.
Yeah. I noticed a growth soon after I retired, man. I put on so much happy weight. It was crazy, right? I grew a lot in that transition.
All right. AFSA's vision is the premier professional military and veteran service organization of choice. How do leaders at every level contribute to making that vision a reality? Or like how can they if they're not already doing so?
Yeah, so really it's digging in, right? It's digging in. Because there's a lot of times where I've heard from people at the chapter level. So for the people that don't realize what the levels of APSA, right? I'm always going to start at the chapter level, right? From the membership, being a part of a chapter, right? We have right now 121 chapters across the globe. We have 7 divisions, right? And then we have international. So we have our international board of directors and we have our HQ staff, right? That work hand in hand to keep the lights on. But when it comes to making it the premier, organization to be a part of, I don't hate on like the Airmen's Council 5, 6, top 3. I was big in the top 3 because it put me with like-minded people and it gave me a network to take care of airmen. Right. I have phenomenal people I met in Moody's top 3. But AFSA was always my passion because of the mission. Right. So a lot of people don't realize when they're representing the entire association, they're representing me, they're representing the HQ staff, and they walk in a room and talk about AFSA and what we do, right? And so I've been at some chapter meetings where people get negative feedback, not from me, right? But it's coming off like a booster club, this event, that event. Hey, whatever brings people in to make them passionate about it, and then we hit them with the legislation side of it that we're doing, right? We're getting them involved in the fight. We're getting them in to go from a I always would say, right, there's a lot of non-believers in all the organizations, right? A lot of non-believers walking around installations right now. I've talked to some retirees that kind of are very surprised when I start. I'm like, yeah, I'm involved with a veterans nonprofit. And they're like, oh, which one? I go, oh, were you in the Air Force? Yeah, I was. I'm like, oh, I'm involved with the Air Force Sergeant Association. That's still around? Yeah, we're not going anywhere. You better believe it, right? And we start talking about it, but the chapter presidents and the individuals doing those membership briefs and connecting with people, they're an AFSA ambassador, right? And so they have to understand what we're doing. So we're trying to do a better job when it comes to the communication piece and how we communicate as an association and preparing those chapter leaders or the individuals standing up there in front of people, having the courage to stand up, right? And talk about what they're passionate about to be able to give them better information, right? So when we have our legislative committee, right, one of the things we're talking about is as these bigger issues are coming up, putting together a one pager, distributing that out through the legislative channels, getting it down to the chapter level. So when they're at a chapter meeting, they can speak intelligently to it, right? And just that better communication, right? But AFSA isn't anything without the membership, right? So the membership is extremely important, and we have a very diverse membership, all different walks of life. It's a diverse group. We have retirees, we have brand new airmen, we have dependents, right? Parents who believe in the association so much, they're signing their children up, right? And so that's massive to me. But I always tell like chapter leaders I connect with, one of my favorite things I just started doing Vanity is I've been cold calling chapter presidents, and I love it. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I don't want them prepared. I don't want the IP treatment. I want to catch you off guard. Right? I want to catch you off guard. I call them to say thank you for what they're doing, see what their biggest accomplishment is for the year. I ask them who was the person that got you involved with apps and how they convinced you, right? Because I love hearing the names of Anne-Marie Brazillo, who's at Mountain Home. Right, I got to meet her in Houston. We happened to be sitting next to each other at the bar. I called the Mountain Home chapter president, and that's who he dropped. Well, she's my supervisor. She convinced me what AFSA is doing, and it's important for me to take part. Roland Cooper, right, at the Holloman chapter, right, heard his name as well. And if you've been around AFSA, you know Coop Dog, right? Coop Dog's, he's about him some AFSA.
Mhm.
But getting all these names and the stories, right? There's so many leaders out there that are making a massive impact, right? I was lucky enough to meet she's actually, I believe she's the chapter vice president at Columbus Air Force Base. And I think now she is the acting president because their president deployed. But she was just so passionate and happy about AFSA. It was hard not to put a smile on around her. And she did a phenomenal thing. They did a book drive, right? They did a book drive. So they were raising money for it. I forget how much they raised at the D4 convention, but we got her some cash for the book drive and what they were doing. But there's so many people spreading AFSA awareness around the installations or in their communities that, man, I can't thank them enough. I will call each one of them and thank them individually, but it is something that it's hard work being a chapter president, right? It's very hard work running a chapter. It's hard work running a division. It's not easy work running an association. But when I get to meet people like yourself and these chapter presidents or these brand new members that are at their first convention and then getting to connect with some of our more seasoned members, right? It's amazing to connect. So here's a quick story. So there's an individual that I got to meet in Jacksonville at my first international convention. Her name is Phyllis Beck. She's going to be in Orlando this year. I just looked at the international convention roster and I saw Phyllis Beck on there. So Phyllis Beck was a previous Chapter 460 president years ago, back when Chief Murray was the command chief at Moody. Right. So I introduced myself to Chief Murray and at a division convention. And he was like, are you the chapter president of 460? Yeah, I guess I am. He goes, man, you need to meet Phyllis Beck one day. She was the chapter president when I was down. She was telling me all her little tricks that she would do to put AFSA out there in front of people. And I got to meet her in Jacksonville. And probably has no idea who the heck I am. I'm okay with that, right? Because I know who she is and what she meant to the legacy of 460. So it's just getting those individuals, seeing how they view AFSA leadership through their own lens, right? And being able to share those stories, right? Because it's a challenge to lead a division, and it's really sometimes really difficult, but it can be so rewarding, right? To get involved and just make a difference in all ranks.
In my experience, it is challenging, but it's like it's a different feeling from any of the other orgs to me, like in a good way. And I don't want to say that the other orgs were restrictive, but for me, I felt like I'm doing things in AFSA that I either didn't think about or that we just didn't do in the other orgs. Like here, like we do Reefs Across America, honor salutes. Like it's like a sense of like patriotic pride that is, and I don't want to down any other orgs, but it didn't feel that way. Like even if we go back, to 652, they do beach cleanups. Like I
Mhm.
don't, it feels your purpose, my purpose in a different way than I've experienced in other orgs.
Yeah, it's
All
you know what.
for people who are fighting for our benefits who could be doing anything else. IP,
Mhm.
you could be doing anything else. You don't have to do this, so like,
I'm trying to do it for
I
another 2
think that
years.
if you did it for just a day after service, like when you, as a service member, so I'm still in, like the perception could be that I am doing this to get a carry. Your carry is serving people, but it will never be like, oh, you're doing it for a bullet. Oh, you're doing it for a paycheck. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so like
Uh-huh.
it is, thank you.
It's I appreciate that. It's one of the things that so I was just down there at Maxwell. I'm actually going to Maxwell, chapter 444, right? I'm going to Maxwell on Friday to go brief the First Sergeant Academy, right? We go down there to brief the First Sergeant Academy. We have a great relationship. And I always tell them the same thing, right? When it comes to the First Sergeant, I'm actually, funny enough, I'm briefing the First Sergeant Council tomorrow at Moody. People are their business, right? And I always tell them, hey, we're in the same business, but you're not hearing me out on our side, right? So we get into that. But when I was down there last time, their new chapter president, Senior Master Sergeant Mike Jansen, he was with me at Moody. I met him when he was a master select. I met him through the top three. I was running their, I served as a top three president twice and when here at Moody, and I just wouldn't go away, right? So I was like, let me be the membership coordinator. Let me be the membership person, right? I sat at the front table when as people signed in, just like, just start talking to them, introduce myself, see what brought them to the top three, walk them to the table. But I met Mike that way. He was like I said, master select. And there was just something about him, man. Dude's a dog. Like he just great leader, great human, but he's a workhorse, right? So he was at Maxwell. I reached out to him and said, hey, man, I got an opportunity for you, right? I can teach you AFSA. I don't have to teach you leadership. I don't have to teach you connection. You got that. I trust you. But he was newer to AFSA and we were talking at his house. He goes, hey man, so how much does AFSA pay you? Like you get paid by AFSA? I go, no man, I don't. And he was like, I love that even more. And just like he's so bought into it. But yeah, it's like I said, man, it's a paycheck of purpose, right? So that's where being able to get up on stage, share what AFSA's doing, get people to connect with AFSA. There's just nothing like it, right? And there's something, and going back to, what you were saying for the carrot, right? I heard that, right? I became a young chapter president as a young tech sergeant, and that's how I was treated by my peers, right? In air traffic control, right? They saw me doing this thing, and I was still taking care of the team. I was still being who I was, right? But I just had AFSA as well. That was my responsibility. People said my name in a room, and they could have said somebody else's, right? And so I was getting after it. I had a phenomenal team. We made some noise down here at 460 together. But that's how people treated me. Oh, you're just doing it for this. I'm still doing it, right? People are like, dang, Steve, you're still peddling AFSA memberships? I'm like, peddling? Man, don't make me go outside with you, right? I'm not peddling AFSA membership. I'm trying to make you aware of what we're doing to protect you and your family, right? When it comes to quality of life initiatives. But it's something that I have friends who are command chiefs now, right? That knew me back then as a young chapter president. And it's amazing to still have that connection and talk about stuff. They go, man, we had you all wrong. Like, all right, man, I'm still going to ask you, are you supporting your chapter? Right? Are you going to these events? Are you talking to your chapter president? But it's amazing to be able to connect with those individuals and kind of almost like, yeah, I told you I wasn't doing it for promotion. I wasn't doing it for an award. I do it because it's purpose and it's passion. When those things connect, man, opportunity just takes off.
Sure, for sure. And I mean, we have so many retirees and veterans in AFSA. And when I go back to how this organization feels different from anything else from like that I'm used to in the Air Force, it's because
Mhm.
I don't show up to those meetings and see like my elders, like true elders,
Mhm.
like from human to human. And that also feels, to me, that feels great. Especially when, depending on how long you've been in, your grandparents might not even be here no more. Mine is not. So I really also like to see that. Okay, I'm gonna do one more from the leadership panel,
Okay.
the leadership pillar. All right. So, what leadership challenges do you see our members facing today, and how can organizations like AFSA help address them?
So I mean, there's a ton of challenges out there, right? With the ever changing landscape of what's going on in the world around us, what's going on happening in the Air Force and the military, and what's happening locally at installations. When it comes to the AFSA piece of it, we're getting less buy-in. It's not, and a lot of people are like, it's AFSA. No one wants to be part of AFSA. No, it's all the organizations, right? People, I always say, AFSA asks for really two things, right? Money for a membership and minutes, right? And they're very limited commodities, right? And so that's where when people are taking part in AFSA, I always tell them, like, if you're willing to give AFSA your minutes, I'm willing to give you mine. Like, if you need me virtually, if it's a phone call, if it's a text, whatever it is, you let me know, I got you. But there's a lack of support at all the chapters, right? I look at those geographically separated chapters, affectionately known as retiree chapters, and it breaks my heart because we have people at these chapters who, like, to me, when I was a tech sergeant, man, like, these were like the giants to me of the association. And now they're at chapters where it's hard to get those members to a meeting because they're starting to age out, unfortunately, right? And you hear me say this all the time, is AFSA is going to ride with you from the moment your boots or your tennis shoes hit pavement at basic training to the last sunset that awaits us all. We've lost a lot of great AFSA members in the past couple of years, and even before that. So, it's harder for people to get people involved, right? And sometimes I've asked people, hey, what got you to your first meeting? So and so got me to my first meeting. Or I always love, like, I had a chief that picked me up by my uniform and drugged me to my first AFSA meeting. Everybody has a different reason why they showed up. At one point, we were all non-members going to our first meeting just to see, like, what is this about? But it's meetings are becoming smaller and smaller. Heavy ops, with everything going on right now in the world, right? We have a lot of installations where people are just like, my base is deployed. I get it, right? Don't beat yourself up about it, right? It happens. We got to give grace when we're asking to get volunteers from a group of volunteers, people who volunteered to serve the country, right? Executive Director Keith Reed said this perfectly, right? It's less than 1% protecting the other 99, and it struck me. I'm like, man, that's accurate, right? So we're asking those volunteers to come volunteer with us, right? So one of the challenges that they're facing a lot is a smaller pool of people coming out. And I do think, with AFSA, I would love to sit up here and go, we're absolutely perfect. We got this lined up. Everybody should take notice. We got some progress to make. Have we made progress quite a bit in the last 2 years? Absolutely. Right. And there's some people who don't see the work behind the scenes. I have an amazing board of directors and amazing committee leads, right, that are doing the thing. Give them a little bit of guidance, give them some autonomy to do what they need to do. They're getting after it. But it's just when you go into a chapter meeting and there's 8 people there, right? Some people look at that like defeated. I don't. I go, I got 8 people to connect with. Man, let's talk. You got to keep that positive and keep that energy up. But I'll tell the story that I'm full of AFSA stories. By the way, people tell me this all the time. I may come off like
Oh,
I'm
good.
I'm not just recently retired a couple years ago, but so I went to Turkey for a year, came back, and I got asked to run the chapter again. And so I went to a chapter meeting, and besides the big group of air traffic controllers I brought out, I think we had like 5 people there, right? And my group of controllers. And so we got new people voted in. I ran the chapter and got people hyped up, got to connect with them, got them to believe in what we're doing. Our first AFSA meeting, we had 2 people there. Two, right? 2 non-EC members walked into the meeting, and the look of defeat just came across all my EC members, right? And so I was like, hey, before we get started, EC, huddle up with me, right? Huddled up. I go, hey, you better get up there and brief like the room's filled with people. Make those 2 people feel like they're the most 2 important people on this installation, right? That's your goal. They're not AFSA members. Make sure they're AFSA members before they leave, and make sure they come back and they bring one person each, right? And they looked at me like I was crazy. I was like, watch this. I went up there and addressed the room like I do at the international convention, right? I'm bringing the energy. I'm bringing the heat. I want you to believe in this thing I love, right? And they came back and they brought more people and they brought more people. And you could just see the incline, right? That growth of the chapter. But it wasn't about, right, trying to be the best chapter out there. I had my tricks up my sleeve that I do for connection and getting us out there. But it was seeing those airmen that were taking part grow as humans, right? Of getting up there and being able to go from very nervous, and kind of looking down and not being able to publicly speak, to getting up there, putting their chest out, chins up, boom, and crushing it. One of the people I always bring up is Justin Bullock. So Justin Bullock was one of my controllers. And with air traffic, you're not allowed to do anything extra in air traffic until you're a certified controller, right? That's the most important mission, is to work planes. And so he goes to this meeting with me, and he had just started training. They're like, do we have anybody that wants to run for a membership trustee? Justin's hand goes up. I'm his supervisor, leader in the facility. I'm like, I'm about to crush this kid, right? And so I'm like, I'm gonna let this happen. I'm gonna let this happen. So he becomes our membership trustee, and we get back to the tower and we sit down. I was like, I don't know what you were thinking. I put my SOP in front of him. I make him read the line of what it says, that there's nothing extra until you're certified. And so he's just kind of like, what do I do? I go, I'm not letting you out of it. I'm not going to hear any BS about you struggling in training. You volunteer for this, you're going to fulfill responsibilities. This dude, I would get calls about him vanity in the office. Hey, does Justin Bullet belong to you? I go, no, he belongs to his parents, but I'm in charge of him right now. I was like, but what did he do?
Yeah.
He's in my squadron right now, in the commander's office, talking to him about the Air
Trying to
Force
get
sergeant.
members.
He would stop. He would get off work, go to a random squadron, and just talk to people about AFSA, right? And he's someone I'm still dearly
Wow.
connected to. Yeah, he ended up getting out of the military. He went from Moody to Offutt, got out, got picked up at Dover as GS, and then his wife got a promotion. And he said, "Hey, you follow me around, I'm following you around." So he lives up in Nashville, Tennessee. I still talk to him. He's still an AFSA member. Oh, he better be. His membership might lapse. I'll get that fixed after this. But he's just
Right.
one of the phenomenal humans that I've been lucky enough to call a friend in my career, in my time with AFSA.
So now we are going to move over to the followership pillar.
Mm.
All right. So leadership often gets the spotlight, but every great leader was once a follower. What does effective followership mean to you?
So when it comes to followership, you have to master the art of followership. In order to be a really good leader and excel, you need people that are going to understand what you're trying to do in the vision, right? And so everybody, you got to figure, right? A 360-degree leadership, everybody's a follower of somebody in some role in the military. And same thing with AFSA. I might be a chapter president, I might be the leader at my chapter, but I'm a follower when it comes to division, right? I'm a follower when it comes to international. But I think, to really be skillful as a follower, you should be able to ask the right questions, help solidify the vision, be a part of the vision, and support your leader, right? And support looks completely different at times, right? Support isn't always yes, sir, yes, man, right? That's not support. Support sometimes closing the door with your leader and giving them the hard truth that we talked about earlier, right? Of just going like, hey, you're missing the mark when it comes to selling the vision, right? You're telling us the objective, but you're not telling us the why or the how, And like one of the favorite things I did when I was running the control tower at Moody, I would have an issue, get the airmen and NCOs together on a Friday, lay it out there and go, let's solve this together. Right. And they're like, what? You want us to do your job for you? In a way, yeah, I do. Right. Because if I include you and you're willing to listen to me, right, and we make this vision ours versus mine, we can execute it better. Right. But there's a lot of times I've had young airmen. I had a guy, Clint Bruce, who was with me at Innsbruck Air Base in Turkey. I would always joke with him that so I had a 14-member team in the tower to include myself, and I had count them, two senior airmen. Everybody else were NCOs. I had a gang of tech sergeants. Right? I had these two airmen, and
Yeah.
Clint Bruce would always give me what I would call unsolicited advice. We would do cookouts at the house every month for the tower team, and I was like, you guys got to bring sides, man, senior NCOs, man, we're going to hold it down and cook for you to get back. But Bruce would stay back, right? And he would just, hey, Sergeant Haro, this is where I think you're missing the mark. This is this is that. And I would just sit back there and listen. And he was like, I know you're upset with me right now. I was like, nah, man, I'm not in the cab all day, right? I don't get to hear everything. But I think what he was doing, I told him, I was like, dude, I was like, don't take this wrong, right? You're leading through followership, right? Because you're helping me, you're leading your leader, right? By being a good follower, by telling me the truth, right? So when it comes to followership, I truly believe that one, you got to have the relationship with your leader to tell the truth, right? You got to have the relationship is key. And then also, you have to be wise enough and be tactful enough to be part of the vision, right? To be part of that conversation. Because when it comes to followership, like I stand by this, we have Airman Leadership School. Not everybody is going to
Hmm.
come out ready to lead. It's not the case, right? There's some people, unfortunately, they're at the followership level most of their career, right? Because they don't either get poured into or they don't believe in themselves enough to become that leader at the next level, right? They just want to lay below the line and just get with it, right? And so there's so many people that come out and you're like, well, you're going to go supervise these 5 people. That doesn't make them a leader. A certificate doesn't make them a leader, right? Some CCF credits doesn't make them a leader, right? They have to choose to be a leader, right? But I think the followership piece to answer the question, right? A long way to answer the question is it's about the relationships and it's about understanding your role and not in a submissive kind of way, but where you can master the level of communication from your role to really guide the leadership and guide the vision of a team.
Right on. Right on. The reason why I also harp on like why followership is even a pillar on the pig is because most of the time we follow way more than we lead. Like even if you are leading a task, like you just on a day to day, you just follow more. So that's why it's on here. So AFSA was founded by military members who saw the need and took action. How can members move from being passive participants to active contributors within the organization?
I mean, just step up, right? Have a voice. I mean, it's a lot easier than people think, right? And that's why I always say, I want to take the non-believer, make them a believer, make them a member, right? And then go from membership to involved member, go from involved member to an EC to a chapter president. If you want to stay with it, man, roll up to the division, right? A lot of people don't understand, right? With other organizations, it stops at the wing, right? Top 3 stops at the wing, right? But
Mhm.
with AFSA, you can keep moving up if you're passionate about it. We have active duty members on the board of directors, right? We have active duty members. Let me say it again, active duty members on the board of directors, changing the landscape of the association, right? We have CMAS Sergeant Cole Bappy, my guy out of D6. That guy we're very different when it comes to our styles on how, like, I always go back to the 4 lenses, right? It was the first thing that really stuck out to me in PME. 4 lenses got taught to me. I was like, I love this, right? Because it allows you to connect with someone at their level. How you communicate, how I communicate is totally different, right? So, Fanny, what color are you? When it comes to the 4 lenses, what color are you? You're a blue. You're
Yes.
a blue. You're an
No,
absolute blue. I knew it.
I'm not. I am a gold, and I used to
Okay.
be an orange.
Okay. See, I
And
love it.
I'm a gold. I got kids. My kids matured me, so now I'm a fake gold. I'm a gold. I'm a gold now, but my heart used to be orange. I was an
So,
orange.
so what color do you think I am? So I'm 2 colors primarily. What colors do you think they are?
I think you a blue gold.
Ooh, you know what? I probably am now. When I first took that test at NCO, I had a dear friend who, unfortunately, I lost a couple, quite a few years ago. Right, his name was Adrian Ask. Man, like this dude, he's just one of those people that as soon as I met him, I loved him. Right, just connected with him. We lived in the same neighborhood. We went to NCOA together, so we're in 2 different flights. Right, we drove 2 separate cars, but I would always make him drive me to the academy every day because I was lazy. He knew it.
Yeah.
But we go through the 4 lenses class, and I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, oh, I love this. I love this. And how they were messing with us, right? So I am a gold, right? At the time, I was a gold orange, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah, they're yeah.
that's why I said I love that you said I was, right? Because, and I'll share the why
Mhm.
behind it. I come running out the room to find Adrian Ask. And he comes running out his room to come find me. We're at Tyndall together. And he goes, you're a gold. I know you're a gold. You've always been a gold. And I was like, you are so soft and blue, it kills me. Right. And we're laughing about it because that's exactly who we were. Right. But AJ taught me to be a blue. So we worked together as controllers. He lived around the corner from me. So our daughters played together. My stepdaughter played with his daughter. And we were just bonded by brotherhood. And that was my guy. Right. So losing him was definitely a big shock to me. It was something very hard for me to get over. But, I'm always reminded of AJ every day. But I say I love the change, right? Because I was so proud at the time that I was not a blue. That blue is my lowest color. I'm about the mission. I'm about this. I'm not about the people. I was about the people, right? And here's the thing. So I got to teach 4 lenses to my squadron when I was a master sergeant. And we were talking about stuff. And I let them, I was like, what colors do you guys think I am? And someone goes, he's a blue. He's a blue. Look at him. He's a blue. And when I took the quiz again, I was a gold blue. And that's the thing I taught them
Oh,
was,
wow.
yeah.
What you
And I was
mean?
like, here's the thing, guys. I told him, I was like, I was a gold orange when I first took this course when I was at NCOA. And going through experiences in life is going to change who you are and change your perspective. Right. I went through a very dark time in my career in life and it let that blue come out. Right. And so a lot of people like I'm a proud blue right now, right? I got a lot of gold, but I got a lot of blue in me too because of people like AJ, right? And because of the people I get to meet through AFSA, right? It's hard not to care, right? It's what I loved about last year's convention, right? It was smaller, right? And people were worried about it's going to be small, it's going to be this. No, that's going to be even better, right? Because here's the thing: all these people that we got to meet, right, and going like, hey, where you at? Oh, I'm at this chapter, but I'm PCS into Korea. Well, you come with me. I'm gonna let you meet the Division 5 team that are out in Korea right now. We were hooking people up with sponsors, right? Not in the Korea field, right? But through the new chapter, hooking people up with sponsors and getting them connected. And just like where you're like, oh, John Cribb, that sounds familiar, right? Yeah, because you got to connect in D1, right? But last year was amazing because
Yep.
of the room. We controlled the energy of the room, right? And we got to really connect with people, right? And just not just going like, hey, IP, you got a second? Oh, yeah. Hey, what's up? Oh, you're there? Hey, great to meet you. Thank you for what you do. And I'm out, right? Of really sitting down with people going like, man, tell me about your kids, tell me about what you do for work. Tell me what your passions are, right? And having those conversations with people. One of the things I'm most proud of, I'm not just saying that because you are the host of the pit and you're asking me the hard questions, but getting to recognize you in front of the room and making you stand up, right? Because you deserved it, right? And there's so many people out there that we got to love on and recognize last year. And, we're going to do the same thing this year. We're going to get after, we're going to recognize some people, love on some people, and celebrate while we're together and get all the negative and the nitpicking out and this, we're not doing this right or that right. Give me all the feedback, right? Some of the things that we're going to do this year, I'll share with you and whoever's going to listen to the pit. We're going to have a QR code survey, right? So the board of directors gets together and they build a strategic plan for the association. I don't like it, right? What I want to do is get a QR code, right? Do a very short, we all know and love Dr. Keith Castile, my man KC, my rep vet trustee, right? Who won the room last year. But working with him, we're gonna do some micro surveys and we're gonna ask the people, we're gonna put it on our social media pages, we're gonna push it out through the chapter presidents. I wanna know what we're getting wrong, right? I know what I'm getting right. We know what we're getting right, what we're getting wrong. But I don't want to build a strategic plan with the board of directors sitting around a table or on a virtual call. I want to gather the real data of the people going through it every single day, hear it from them and let that funnel up and let them build that strategic plan for us to execute. Because that's followership, right? That's leadership, right? Hearing it from the grassroots level, because that's why we exist. But yeah, I'll be honest with you. I've been talking so much, I forgot the original question. But I just love talking to you.
Uh, All right, so now we're going to move on to this perspective pillar. So, AFSA has advocated for military members and their families since 1961. From your perspective, what has remained constant about the needs of our military community?
Ooh, that's great. I would say the quality of life initiative, right? After 65 years old this year, 65 years we've been around, right? So I love it. I had one of my bosses, former Air Force, he did 2 enlistments in 60s, 70s. And when I started talking about the veterans nonprofit I was involved with, he was like, are you talking about AFSA? I'm like, heck yeah, I'm talking about AFSA. He was like, it's still around. What do you do? What do you do for AFSA? And I go, well,
Yeah.
I am the international president. And he started laughing. He's like, no, seriously, what do you do? And I was like, "No, that's what I do." But the thing that's been the constant is the need, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's the need, right? I would love a picture perfect world where maybe these VSOs, the BFW, American Legion, AFSA, we exist for a reason because you got to look at it, right? No hate on our current administration, no hate on them, but look at the numbers, right? 20% of our Senate are veterans. At least that's what they check on the box, right? Hovering around 18% of our House of Representatives are veterans, right? It's these people that are in charge of representing us in a room that we're not in, right? So that constant need for quality of life initiatives, That's the most consistent thing, right? That's why we exist. And a lot of people don't realize that, right? Because let's face it, as a young airman, Steve Haro did not pay attention well, I'll take it back. I paid attention to the news. I lived overseas. As a kid, I would read the Stars and Stripes every single day, right? It was a weird thing for me to do as a seventh grader, but I loved it. Right. I paid attention. But as a young airman, I didn't pay attention as much as I should have. I was too busy doing other things. If I had a place to go, people to laugh with, a spot to go play soccer, and a spot to go, have some drinks and cool off, and you paid me for it, I was living the dream. But I wish I would have paid a little bit more attention. Right. And I think that's when we go into rooms with, FTIC, go into rooms with NCOs, speaking one on one to people at the food court, telling them why we exist. We got some pretty big things that AFSA is currently fighting for, right? And it's not just us. We're a military coalition. We partner with these other organizations to get things across the finish line. We are almost there with the Major Richard Starr Act. Almost there. This thing that we've been fighting for years, and, it's going to be, there's some proposed trade-offs with it, right? That people are very upset about, but we got to look at the balancing act, right? So I would love for it to be a zero-sum thing, but we know it's not going to be. But the consistent need for quality of life initiatives for these people that are sacrificing right now. When I was at the D4 convention, I kind of brought it up in my speech, right? Because it was, right after the change in the landscape of our current situation as the conflict that we're currently in. I was talking about, these IUD deployments, these Kuwait deployments, the Saudi Arabia Peace Act deployments, right? They're not the easy deployments at the current time, right? I had friends and family there that were going through some pretty hard times, man. Like, we had a division president, Callie Aberrin, right? Former Division II president, who stepped down while she was there because of everything going on, so that's more people that need to be represented, right? These people that carry these invisible wounds back from these deployed locations, and it affects their family, right? I did 7 deployments in my time. And for a controller, that's quite a bit. There's some maintainers and CE troops are like 7. I did that on my first enlistment, but I went through some things. I suffer from PTSD as well. I cope very well. I've been given the tools by the VA, and a lot of people hate on the VA. Tallahassee VA has been amazing to me, absolutely amazing to me. But the constant need for organizations like us to be the voice for the people that cannot be in the room, right? We have some amazing, amazing elected officials that go above and beyond for the military community, right? I will always praise Senator John Ossoff out of Georgia. He comes to Moody. He goes to, I want to say Fort Eisenhower or Fort Gordon, chapter 480. But he's thoroughly in depth involved in the military community and what the needs are. And I know there's many more like him, right? But organizations like us need to connect with those elected officials to be the voice of the service member, past, present, and future, right? And you got to think about it too. Like, think about the military kids, right? I shared that I was a military brat. It can be pretty traumatic to young kids going from place to place, right? Not knowing anybody there, right? Or one of the things I shared about my son, Jason. So Jason's 18, high functioning autism, got great support over here in Valdosta, Georgia. He was down here. He lives with his mom, who's a retired service member as well. But Jason's story is much like a lot of other military kids' stories, right? But there was a point where mom was in Korea, mom gets back, dad leaves for 6 months, dad gets back, mom deploys for 6 months, mom gets back, dad leaves for a year, dad gets back, mom leaves for 6 months, no, a year, because she went back to Korea. And there's many kids like that, right? I grew up in a house that it was common for my dad to be gone, right? Being out in the field in the army. And so when where me and Laura had Riley, and I was at the tail end of my career, I was thankful that she wouldn't have to face that, right? Because I loved deploying until Jason entered my life, right? All of my other deployments, I'm gone. I'm gonna go meet new people. I'm gonna go have fun. I'm gonna go connect. I'm gonna go do my thing, learn a different mission set, come back better than I was. But then I had to tell Jason bye. And that broke, right? And so being the voice of these members is extremely important, right? And so I think the most constant thing that we have is the need. And that's my answer, is the need for associations like AFSA to stand up and be the voice.
So AFSA advocates on issues ranging from military pay and healthcare to education and survivor benefits. Which issues do you believe will have the greatest long-term impact on military members?
So many. Question put me on the spot, Vanity. There's so many, right? Because a lot of times we get caught up in the pay, right? And that's been a big selling point of these pay raises that are coming through. I think a large part of it too is the medical care, right? That's why we had the major purchase, all right, getting more people to checks, right? Because right now we have concurrent receipt, which wasn't always a thing, right? So, anybody 50% or higher, we get two separate checks, right? The Major Bridges Star Act is going to increase the people getting two separate checks, especially for our combat veterans. But I think it's the medical care, right? Because that's something that not everybody has, right? So and there, a lot of people will hate on the military medical system, right? I was a med group, sure, right? So I got to watch or had to watch actually these service providers who are staying till 9 o'clock at night to do all the paperwork, right? Because they're undermanned. 9 o'clock at night, and they're back in the morning at 5 o'clock in the morning just to do it all over again, right? And it was crazy to watch, right? But they did it with a smile on their face because of who they were, and there was times where I would leave work and come back because I had to take care of an issue, and my docs are just now leaving. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Did you forget something at the office? And they're like, nah, this is every day for us. Then you want to walk down
Mm.
the mental health room filled with people, and we have two providers, right? And we're getting better, right, of getting more resources on base for those individuals with mental health concerns. But the medical piece of it, there's so many people walking around wounded, right? And you have no idea, right? And you hear people say this all the time, right? Choose kindness because you don't know someone's battle that they're facing. But it's true. I mean, I can speak to that. When I was going through a really dark time in my career, man, I would put on a show for everybody. I had a mask on. I'm just Steve's good, right? But as soon as my tires hit the pavement on Bemis Road outside of the gate, it all came out, right? Everything I was holding in, right? But I'm one of many, right? And so I think the medical care is extremely important. So anything that really factors in better medical care, better reach of medical services, and especially when it comes to the mental health of our service members and their families, because it's not just the service members, right? There's a lot of military kids that are going through things that they have no idea that there's something, mentally that's holding them back because they don't know how to process their emotions yet, right? So having those resources, having those individuals embedded into the military schools, so impressive, right? So impressive. I didn't have that growing up as a military brat. A lot of people didn't. But yeah, the medical care is extremely important. I'm happy with the pay raises, right? To meet the civilian sectors, right? To make sure we're paid fairly for what we do. And a lot of people use that to educational benefits. I want people to use that to get their education and really get something out of their service that's going to make the transition easier for them, right? But the medical care has to be there, right? And that's something that I always bring up. I would treat my airmen, right, as just like their parents delivered them to me. Hey, Steve, we're going to let you hold Isaac, right, for 4 years. And try your best to get him back to us in one piece. And I can't always promise that. I can try my damnedest, right? A lot of my peers try their damnedest, right? But when we leave the service, we're not always in one piece, right? We're going to look very different than when we join, regardless how long you do, right? But that medical piece needs to be there for us to lean on to make sure that we're well taken care of for the sacrifice that we made for however many years we're in the service.
I think that's a good one. All right. So we're going to wrap up with our last question.
Okay.
So if you if you could leave our listeners with one message about leadership, followership, in service, or anything, what would it be?
I believe Andy Cross Williams is the next president of the United States Air Force or United States of America. No, it's so this is an easy one. You heard me talk about it last year at the IC. Put your name tape on it, right? Put your name tape on it.
Mm.
Anything you do, you build your brand, right? You build who you are, you build your character, you build your reputation, right? And there's gonna be a lot of people coming for your reputation. But if you put your name tape on anything you do, and that's from, right? I remember my first real task in the military was the vacuum the break room floor at Milden Hall at the control tower. No one vacuumed as good as me, right? And nobody did. I got the corners, I moved furniture, right? I was about it. It's something that my dad taught me at a very young age. Like your name means everything to you, right? And there was times where I didn't serve his name tape very well when I was a young airman, right? And I shared some of those stories at the IC last year, right? But if it's followership, if it's leadership, if it's whatever you do in life, put your name tape on it, own it, man, and have pride in ownership, right? And that goes back to like running a chapter. It goes back to who you are as a person, as a teammate, and who you look at when you're looking in the mirror. Right. Be proud of who you are, be proud of what you do, and be proud of what you did. Right. And be honest with yourself. Don't beat yourself up, but go back to progress over perfection. Right. But
Mhm.
that's the one piece that always stuck out to me that I would tell people. Put your name tape on it. It's your career. No one's going to care about it more than you. Right. And you owe it to yourself to be honest with those around you. Right. So being able to go, you know what? I might be senior master, senior master on Haro to some people. In air traffic world, we go by initials. So my initials were Hotel Oscar. I'm HO to a lot of people. But at the end of the day, I was always Steve Haro, right? Regardless of what title I had, what role I filled, if I was a follower, if I was a leader, Haro never changed, right? So when people think back of their interactions with me, I hope they're good, right? They're not always going to be good, but I hope they're good because what I gave them was me, right? Genuinely who I am, who Steve is, who Haro was, who HO is, right? And I carry that with me into that transition I did. It's not just IP Haro, right? It's Steve to my wife. It's some other colorful names to my sister, right? It's Steve to my parents. And most important to me is it's dad to Riley and Jason.
Well, thank you so much, Haro, because it never changed. And this has been just a great hour. So I just want to thank you so much for your time.